Good afternoon. Today I'm joined by Ronaldson and Janet Sinnott as we move towards next week and the next phase of easing lockdown restrictions. I thought it was an appropriate time to keep residents up to date with where we are with grants and the way our teams can continue to support both businesses and residents. Janet, can I start with you? Can you just give us a little bit of sort of a summary where we are with grants and how we're going to be going forward from now?
Yeah, sure. So yeah, we're coming to what we hope is the final stages of the COVID grant support schemes that we've run up to date. We've delivered over 8,000 grants, totaling 31 million to all of our Copeland businesses since last March. The team's worked incredibly hard to make sure the fundings reach businesses quickly, and what I'll do today is I'll just summarise what remains of the schemes that are still in place. So first of all, businesses can still apply for the local restriction support grant for closed premises, and that's for the period 16th of February to the 31st of March. That's a 44-day period for businesses that were mandated to close during that period, and you can still apply for that grant until the 31st of May 21. Next, we've got the Restart scheme. This was announced in the budget on the 3rd of March. It's a grant scheme for non-essential retail, hospitality, accommodation, leisure businesses, personal care and gym and sport businesses. It's a one-off payment and businesses are placed into one of two strands. So the first one is non-essential retail, and that's strand 1. If you have a rateable value up to 15,000, you can receive a one-off payment of £2,667. For rateable values between 15,000 and less than 51,000, it's a one-off payment of £4,000. And for rateable values greater than 51,000, businesses are entitled to a £6,000 grant. The rest of the sectors, that's hospitality, accommodation, leisure, personal care, gym and sports, are placed into strand 2. It's the same rateable value categories, but the grant amounts start at 8,000 and go up to 18,000. So this scheme supports businesses that offer in-person services where the main service activity takes place in a fixed rate paying premises in those sectors that I've just mentioned. So the business must be eligible for business rates, must have a business rates account number to apply. If there's mixed use within the business has to evidence which part constitutes 50% or more, and once we receive that, we'll determine the grant amount. We have got a quick eligibility guide on our website listing the types of businesses and the strand they're in. Businesses just need to go to the COVID banner at the top of the copeland.gov.uk website, click on the area that says support for businesses, and everything's in there. What we did when this scheme was first announced is we sent a shortened application form at the end of March to all those businesses that we believe are eligible. And as of today, there's still around 200 businesses that are yet to apply for this scheme or complete that shortened application form. So what I'm going to do is send a reminder to those this week. But if anybody's listening and they're unsure, they've not yet applied for the Restart grant and they're not sure whether they're eligible, please give us a call. The link to the Restart application is also on the website to just fill it in if you're in those sectors and you've not yet received any funds. Do you want me to cover the discretionary scheme as well?
Yeah, that would be useful. Janet, just before we move on, clearly we've paid a huge amount of money out to thousands of businesses, but you're estimating there's potentially 200 we've not reached, which again is a fair number. Typically, why do these 200 businesses not know they're eligible, and what more can we do to make them aware?
I think the main thing now, we've built up a lot of information about businesses, so we're reaching out by email where possible. So I think the only thing that I can think of is that when we've sent out the shortened application link at the end of March, it's perhaps businesses that are just not regularly checking their email. It might have gone into the junk folder or whatever. You know, just have a look and see whether that email has come through. It doesn't matter if you can't find it, you deleted it, or it's, you know, it's not there. Just go onto the website, go to the area where the Restart grant detail is, and there's a link to apply, and just fill that in. You know, you don't need to have received that early invitation from us. And I will be sending a reminder out by email anyway this week, so you know the link will be included within that email.
It might be helpful through our comms team if we can put a post to sort of typically some of the businesses that we've managed to identify are in that group of 200 of what type of business they are. And, you know, if we've got people, business people or residents listening to this podcast, you know, we you know, through them and word of mouth, we may be able to get the message out. So on discretionary grants, what can you add on discretionary grants?
Yeah, sure. So we've this is called the Additional Restrictions Grant Scheme. We're not taking any new applications for this scheme right now, but we are working with around 300 businesses that have accessed this fund since last November. Got a small amount of money left from the second tranche of funding that we received. As we moved out of lockdown, we reached out to the 300 or so businesses by email again to ascertain if they remain impacted. We've asked those businesses to respond to some important questions. Once we've got those responses, we'll be able to use what remains of that second tranche. Once we use all of this fund, we can access a third tranche of funding. It isn't a huge sum. We've been told to expect around 450,000. But when we receive it, we hope to do two things. The first thing we want to do is to allocate a small sum under wider support measures, so that businesses can access vital support and guidance from external business support organisations, which we think is really important at this stage. You know, we hope it'll help them to recover well from the effects of the previous 14 months. And then with the majority of that fund, we will offer direct grants to businesses. It is still early days. You know, we don't expect to receive the funding until mid to late June, but we envisage that the scheme will look to support businesses that have been impacted the most, those that have got, you know, the increased cost to support reopening safely, you know, through COVID, and those that have not received any of the mandatory grant support. So, you know, we'll be really looking at where those gaps are. Details regarding it will follow as soon as we've got the funds. We'll update the website, we'll put up the usual comms, and we'll probably follow up with a podcast as we usually do as well. Thank
you very much, Janet. Rose, you've been dealing with the test and trace payments over the course of the pandemic. So some good news on that, in the fact you don't have to deal with as much, and some news on expansion. Could you just elaborate on you know, a summary of the situation in terms of test and trace payments?
Yeah, absolutely. It's good news that you know, we're not getting as many applications because the infection rates have really dropped, which is really good. The scheme's recently been expanded. Government's listened to a lot of the things that we've been saying around the fact that there needed to be support for the parents and guardians of children that have had to isolate. So the scheme's recently been expanded to include those circumstances. So if you have to care for your child, you've got to be off work, you can't work from home, then you can apply, even though it's the child that's basically isolating, you can apply for a payment as well, which is really good. The scheme's running at the moment until the end of June, so we can accept applications up until that period. But it's good that we're not having as many applications, but it's good that that support's still there because it is needed at times.
You know, throughout the pandemic, and as I said earlier, you know, we paid out you know, millions of pounds to thousands of people, but you know, still there is people out there who as a result of this pandemic, it is causing financial difficulties. What would your advice be to them, and in what circumstances would you recommend people contact the council, Rose?
So if anybody's, for example, struggling with their council tax, by all means make an application for council tax support. If you're not sure how to fill that in or what to do, you can also contact us by telephone. We can go through that process with you. It is an online application, so if you've got that, the link is on our website, so you'll be able to find it, no problem. Anybody that's struggling with the rent side of things, if you claim a universal credit, then you really need to speak to universal credit themselves in relation to the housing costs. Although there is still the discretionary housing payments that Lindsay's normally with us, and she'll sort of give you information about those. So if you're struggling with your housing costs, there's a shortfall in your rent, again, make an application, and we will try and support your people where we can.
So the message really is, people are getting into financial difficulties, to contact us really, and we'll try and point them in the right direction.
Yeah, absolutely.
To where the support is.
Yeah.
Okay, Janet, is there anything else you'd like to add as a final message?
Just to touch on the council tax support that you just said there, the council does also still have a council tax hardship fund. Businesses, individuals don't actually have to be in receipt of the benefits if you've been placed on furlough, or if your household income has reduced as a result of the pandemic. There's also further information about a council tax hardship fund with payments, a discount of up to £300 that can be made towards 2021 council tax balances. Okay,
thank you very much, Janet. Thank you, Rose, and on behalf of everybody, pass on my thanks to both of your respective teams. I think Copeland Council, in terms of the way they've supported business and the community throughout this pandemic, and the speed at which funds have been distributed, they've kept a lot of people going. When restrictions do start to ease next week, there's a lot of businesses that are in a better position than what they could probably have hoped to have been, and that's largely down to the work that your respective teams have done. So, thank you on behalf of everybody for what they've done. It's been an exceptional job in Copeland, one that we're all rightly very proud of. Tomorrow I'll be joined by one of our directors, Sarah Pemberton, and portfolio holders Steve Morgan. They'll be coming on to talk about our waste and recycling operations. Obviously, it's a service that's important to every single person throughout the community, and we'll talk about some of the issues that the pandemic have caused us, and the way that we're trying to resolve them. And also later this week, I'll be joined by John Baker, the new Chief Executive of the Harbour Commission, who's making quite an impact for the positive. So we'll talk to John about a number of the things that he's doing to develop things on Whitehaven Harbour. So Rose, Janet, thank you both very much, and I look forward to speaking to you both again shortly.
Thank you.